Our text from today comes from the book of Proverbs, what we call wisdom literature. And truth be told, I have never, ever liked this text. I do not like the Proverbs woman. In fact, she unsettles and agitates me in a variety of ways. Whenever I would read about her, I just felt this heavy oppression of a culture that subjugates women, diminishes them, and treats them like possessions. I felt angry at the collections of duties, chores, tasks, whatever you want to call them, that she seems to perform so extremely well. I felt she was an impossible ideal and an even more impossible thing to achieve. An ideal woman that many women use as their measuring stick in life. This woman, simply put, made me angry and the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I did not choose this text to dismantle her, although I would very much like to. I chose this text because today, us as women are this woman, but just not all at once. I chose this text today because out of all the attributes and the affirmations and the wonderful tasks she completes so well, she is filled with strength and honor and dignity. I want to focus on verse 25. She is clothed with strength and honor. I am a feminist, if we even use that word anymore. I was born into the era of the feminist movement in the mid-60s. Currently, I would say we're probably heading into the sixth generation or wave of feminism. I fight for women. Every aspect of their life I fight for, especially their strength and dignity. I affirm them, I cry with them, I hold their hand, I shout for joy with them, and I'm willing to go to the mat for them should anyone perpetrate violence against them. That is why I chose this text. I know it was written in a culture that we today cannot possibly fully understand. A time when we, as women, were considered possessions. A time when marriage was a financially binding agreement for the betterment of the husband. A time in which a woman's voice was not a voice of authority at all, except in the home. In the home, she reigned supreme. That is where the majority of her influence resided. Now, this text does show us that because of her great accomplishments, she does have some power in the public sphere. Her deeds earn her honor and influence, yet her voice remains silent. Now, the Bible was penned by men, primarily for men. So it's not a surprise that the voice of women in the Bible is often overlooked. In 2010, Reverend Lindsay Harden Freeman sat down with 3 of her colleagues. She went page by page, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse. She wanted to uncover how many women actually speak in the Bible. Do any of you have a guess? How many? 93. 93 women speak. 49 of them are named, and a total of 14,056 words are collectively spoken. It's only 1.1% of the total text. 1.1%. Some of the women that speak are prominent. Some are not. Jesus' mother spoke only 19 words. Mary Magdalene, 61. Sarah, wife of Abraham, 141. However, there are strong stories by these women. Stories of courage and strength and struggle and dignity. They have a story to share. Women like Esther, a Jewish woman hiding in the court of the Persian king. The prophetess Deborah, of the judges. Mary, the mother of Jesus, a common girl, chosen to do something extraordinary. Mary Magdalene, who traveled with Jesus and was there during his greatest hours of struggle. Ruth, who refused to leave Naomi and took the Israelite God as her very own. Hagar, the handmaiden who bore Abraham a son and then was cast out into the wilderness. The stories of these women and other women in the Bible are examples to us today. They give us a story of generation after generation of a testimony to faith and strength and courage. They tell us a story that today we stand upon and continue to build. They show us we are not powerless, we are not silent. They are stories of women who refuse to be defined by their situation, by their gender, and by their limitations. They are women who are often delivered into impossible circumstances. And then they struggle, and they claim their voice, and the divine working in and through them. They have great fear, but they have even greater courage. We need to tell the stories of the past, and we need to tell the stories of the present to ensure that the future generations of women, our daughters, our nieces, our granddaughters, will have the courage to tell their own. When I look at my very own daughter, who stands up in front of her youth pastor after being told she should not have consoled a bisexual teen who had been thrown out of her home by her mother, who had begun cutting herself. And my daughter had wrapped her in her arms and said, "It's okay, we love you." Yet when her youth pastor heard, he said, "You can't do that." And she stood up. At the age of 17, would we have had the strength to do that? I thank God that each generation seems stronger, seems more able to claim their voice. When I stand in the living room at my niece's house, my sister on one side, my niece on the other, and we watch her 2-year-old daughter, Charlotte, run the house, fearlessly climbing everything, jumping from furniture to furniture. And I think it took us how many generations to get someone with this much sass. Each time we tell our story, we tell it not to say, "Look at me, I'm the heroine, look at what I've done." We do not tell it for that, nor do we tell it so that someone can understand who we are. Because your journey is your own, and no one else can fully understand it. We tell it to highlight the ever-limitless divine nature within each of us that compels us to be women of strength and honor and courage. We tell our story so that others will have the strength to tell their own. We step out fully into the light as women and tell our story so that no one knows they are alone. I do not know what each woman in this sanctuary is struggling with, what war you are waging where the soul meets the very bone of you. But I do know there is a story within each of you. We are often held back by fear and shame and a feeling of great unworthiness. We become beaten down by culture and society, toxic people. We feel we have no strength and we're incredibly unimportant. We are salted by a world that defines us. Too tall, too short, too skinny, too fat, too loud, too quiet, too old, too young. And the list could go on. and every woman here today to know that no matter your age, your race, your economic status, your gender identity, your gender expression, your marital status, your faith background, your life experience, your emotional and mental and physical capability, that you are more powerful than you could possibly imagine. That the bridge between what you think you can do, say, and accomplish, and what you truly can, is forged by the divine herself. As women, by virtue of our gender, we have a shared experience. Yet each of us is unique. A different story, a different set of gifts, a different journey. We need to claim ourselves, all of ourselves, the pretty parts, the messy parts, and the downright ugly things. We do not need to hide who we are, to diminish our story, to devalue the wisdom we have collected. It took you great strength to get to where you are. Claim it, hold on tight, hold it up and say, this is who I am, by the grace of God. We are all women of great courage, great strength, and great dignity. Wouldn't it be amazing if we actually all believed it? In 1797, a woman was born into slavery in upstate New York. Her given name was Isabella Humphrey. In 1826, she escaped to freedom with her infant daughter. She was one of the first African-American women to take a white man to court and win. On June 1st, 1843, she legally had her name changed to Sojourner Truth. In 1846, she began her work as an activist and a reformer. And in 1851, right here in the great state of Ohio, at the Women's Rights Convention, she gave an amazing extemporaneous speech. The title for today's sermon comes from that. Although the refrain, "Ain't I a woman," was never actually in the original speech. It was added 12 years later. She is one of the most remarkable women of her time. Her strength, determination, courage, and dignity are what the stories of women are made of. She tells her story, she fights the good fight, and joins a community of women that say, I have something to give. I have something of value. I am more than what you see. Listen to me as I read the words, and please, ladies, join me in the refrain, "Ain't I a woman?" each time I raise my hand. Well, children, where there is so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. I think that twixt the Negroes of the South and the women at the North all talking about rights, the white man will be in a pretty fix soon. But what's all this they're talking about? That man over there says that women need help into carriages and lifted over ditches and have to have the best seat in town. Nobody ever helps me into a carriage or over mud puddles or gives me the best place. Ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arms. I plowed and planted, harvested and gathered in the barns, and no man could head me. Ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well. Ain't I a woman? I've borne 13 children, most sold off into slavery. And when I cried out with a mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. Ain't I a woman? Then they talk about this thing in the head. Intellect. That's it, honey. What's that got to do with a woman's rights or a Negro's rights? If my cup won't hold but a pint, and yours holds a quart, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little half measure? Fool? Then that little man in black there, he says, woman can't have as much rights as man, because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with it. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all on her own, these women together ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. And now they is asking to do it, and the men better let them. Obliged to you for hearing me, and now old Sojourner ain't got nothing more to say. Ain't I a woman?